To see the water rising up there with businesses that did not put sandbags out, and you hope for the best, but it definitely, you can see the water coming up. Now this is another angle here towards the St. Augustine area. It looks like this is a long, is that a boat out there? It looks like maybe.
Let's toss things out to Jessica Clark, because Jessica is very familiar with this area, and she has been covering storms there for years now. Jessica, we keep on hearing this being compared to Matthew. In your opinion, what are you seeing out there? Would you say it's at or equal to or worse than?
Okay, so I just got off the phone with the city manager in St. Augustine, and I have a little bit of mixed minus guys back in the studio, so I'm gonna take out my earplugs here for a second. But so I just got off the phone with the city manager. The city manager is telling me this is worse than Irma, but it's not at the level of Matthew yet. We're on a road. This entire road, Avenida Menendez, is flooded, completely covered. Even the medians are covered with water right now. That is a seawall. That looks like a little bit of a sidewalk. That's actually the seawall. That is what I've kept looking at, because the water went over it in Matthew. So I have been watching it for the last hour or so. And I've been watching that. I mean, the water from the bayfront, from the bay, is almost completely over that seawall, right? This is almost like a Matthew. Are you looking at that boat, Nick? So that boat we've been eyeing all morning, and it is now moved a bit and is slamming against what would that be, the northwest part of the foot of the Bridge of Lions, and so you can see the way the wind is blowing. You see, there's a piece of equipment coming over the bridge. The bridges, my understanding, have been closed and are closed, and so that looks like a bulldozer of some sort. I don't know what its intentions are. Nick, I think there's also, Nick is our photographer out here, and I think there's a buoy of some sort. Do you see that kind of green and black thing floating? There are moorings out here for boats usually to latch onto instead of anchor, and that's a buoy of some sort. I believe so. So what I want to tell you here is, after speaking with the city manager of St. Augustine, and he flat out told me, frankly, this is bad. That's a quote, guys. This is bad. Because I think most people were expecting that this would not be the way it is. They were thinking it would be almost an Irma. Well, we've passed Irma situation as far as the amount of water that we've gotten downtown. But he really wanted to emphasize. I said, what can we tell people? What would?
Oh, it looks like we just lost her audio. We'll get back to her in just a second. It looks like we have Destiny McKeever. We'll get back to her too. But Jess was giving us such great perspective there, because she has lived and covered in St. Augustine through multiple hurricanes. So it's great perspective from Jess to be able to say, worse than Irma, not yet a Matthew.
We're going to have to try to get back out to either Jessica Clark or Destiny McKeever, because Destiny, we know, is in San Marco too, experiencing high tide right about now. We know what could happen there in terms of flooding as well. We were watching the river slowly rise there, but didn't see it quite reach over the bank and affect anyone's homes there. Again, in the San Marco area, we did see that people were very much prepared. They had sandbags in front of their homes and businesses. But again, we're going to try to get to Destiny in a bit, as well as either Lou, Renata, or Jessica in St. Augustine. Right now I'm hearing that we have Lou Turner available in that area. Lou, tell us exactly where you are, please.
All right, yeah, guys, so St. Augustine, Jessica is about 4 blocks from us to the north along the river, and now my back is facing the west, the creeks of San Sebastian, which all connects to the Intracoastal Waterway. So forward facing, I'm facing the river, and my back now to the San Sebastian. So the water coming up and over that seawall Jessica mentioned is coming this way towards us. So water from the river right here. Water from the creeks and the tributaries off of the Intracoastal, off the San Sebastian, which would be to the west. Think about where the winery is. Think about where the marinas are off towards Highway 1, towards West Augustine. So those tributaries, that water is coming this way, and it's all going to meet in the middle, essentially in the Plaza de Constitucion. So Flagler College, water up to the college right now. As Mayor Curry was giving his update just a moment ago, in the middle of the update, that massive branch from the oak tree came down. Hundreds of year-old tree just lost that massive branch. So the issues with waterlogged trees, with waterlogged saturated earth, as well as all the water that is pouring in from the river. We do have an outgoing tide. We have reached the peak tide. Maybe that's a good thing, hopefully, here in the next few minutes. I am being told repeatedly, over and over again, that we need to get to Jessica. Jessica, go ahead.
Okay, so thanks, Lewis. And the weird thing is, Lewis is maybe a couple blocks away from me. Completely different perspective, except that we're both seeing water. The point that I was trying to make with what the city manager was trying to tell me is that this water will recede. When it does, there are going to be so many homes that have been flooded. Now, this is a game of inches, he says. This is a matter of inches because when you go and drive, which he's suggesting you do not do when the water is still up, but if you go out and drive, think twice, because any wake that washes into homes that have already been flooded and creates more water into those homes, that's just going to add misery to the situation for those folks who have already had so much water in their homes and possibly push more in. He's encouraging people to not drive in neighborhoods, even when this water recedes, just because even with puddles that you splash into, with the side part of your car, and that sends water further up into the yard and into the homes, that is going to hurt people's homes even more. Remember, this is the part you go, boy, this is really sad. It is when people go back to their homes after the water recedes and the home is standing and looks fine from the outside, maybe a little dirty. Then they go in and they realize how much water had been in their homes. And then the demolition of the interior starts. I remember feeling during Matthew and Irma afterwards, it was like we were destroyed from the inside out because the homes were still standing, the businesses were still standing, but the water on the inside had destroyed so much that people just had to rip up, tear out everything because of that water. Some of this water is nasty. If the city's been trying to work on the pump systems, that's the part of the infrastructure that keeps the sewer water going to the wastewater system. Some of those sewer lift stations have not been elevated or addressed. And if that's the case, then there could be sewer systems that have overtopped or flooded. And that means sewer could be in the water. Now, there's all kinds of other stuff in this water, too. So we're seeing things float along. I don't think I would suggest this, but I'm going to show you just for perspective here. Can you show that, Nick? That's a person standing in the water, and it's waist deep. I would not even do that for journalistic reasons, but I hope that man is safe. In the direction further out, and we may have several obstacles in our view here, but the fort is in the direction of where we're pointing that camera. And the sign for the Castillo de San Marcos, the water is up to it. The water is up to halfway up the light post. And again, if you didn't hear me earlier, what I've really been watching is the seawall. My understanding, and I was in the studio during Matthew, but my understanding and talking to many locals is when Matthew struck, the amount of water that we saw with Matthew and St. Augustine was worse than Irma. And the water came over the seawall. Well, and not just splashing over it, right? But it was solid from the bay into the street and the city here. And so that is what is having me compare what we're experiencing right now, to what this city saw with Matthew. Personally, being a resident of St. Augustine, you're not supposed to have emotions as a reporter, right? Personally, this is very sad. This city, it took a long time to recover from Matthew, and then we were slammed with Irma, right? The next year. Matthew was very hard. When I look out there, and I see that, I think, my gosh, are we going through this again? I have talked with meteorologists. I am not trying to forecast here, guys who are in the Weather Center, but I'm wondering, and you guys can fill in the blanks here. This is a little bit after high tide for us right now. We're going to have another high tide, of course, this evening, around midnight-ish. I am wondering if it's going to be worse as far as the elevation of water, because we're continuing to get rain. The tide is going to be high this evening. Is the water level going to be higher? And so, oh, okay, Mike, can you answer that question for us? Will we see more elevation of water here?
Okay, so for this high tide, Jessica, we still have that band of rain that coincided with the high tide. The good news is that band is finally weakening, but you're still getting a push of water. So for the high tide this time around, looks like it will be your highest high tide. And Tim Deegan just reminded me during Matthew, again, you did a great job describing the seawall. That's the key to the whole thing, if it's higher than Matthew. And right now we can still see the seawall, it looks like, but at this point, with the tide going down, we're still getting some water pushing in. So we're still going to have to watch it very closely here. But for the tide later tonight, it does look like the water should not be as high. So this would be the peak right now from the effects of Ian.
Okay, well, it's weird to say we hope so. We hope that this is the peak. I mean, we don't want it to even be this situation right here that we're looking at. Is that car moving? Is that SUV moving down there, Nick? These two cars were parked overnight here as it started to get pretty snarly down here, and they were back to back, and it looks like that gray car down there is kind of slanted, and that's going to be a rough situation. So again, here's the concern. A lot of people thought, I'm going to stick this out. They did not heed the evacuation orders, because they said, we lived through Irma, we lived through Matthew. And then, you know, things change with storms. Things change within hours. And last night, the city manager called me and was concerned because of the things that were changing with the weather forecast, as they do. Same thing happened with the mayor in Jacksonville. They got new information that provided more on what we could experience with this. This, we were thinking going in, would not be as bad as Irma, which was bad. Well, it's worse than Irma as far as the water level here in St. Augustine. And as far as Matthew, we're creeping up to it. I keep trying to gauge in different perspectives to see what's going on here. But guys, we're at a hotel. We're, if you all know, we're at the Hilton on the Bayfront. A lot of people know that hotel. It's a well-known hotel. And I want to, can we show you this, Nick? Can we go over here? So it's the whole hotel is elevated. And so down here, this is a stairs that lead up to where you can park. Now our cars are parked up there, and they are so far safe and dry. But down here then goes out to the sidewalk, which is a beautiful sidewalk in downtown St. Augustine, and then goes out onto the road. And it's just, well, inundated.